Good evening. Hope everybody's doing all right. I huh, just another day watching news come in, and it's just like none of it can catch any slack. You know what I mean? It's just nuts. Um, so I got a bunch of tabs open. I can't even remember how many. Let's see. Looks like 8, which is certainly more than usual. So I got eight tabs open. I get the mystery item tomorrow. So can't share any details on that. I'll tell you the weight. It's 62 pounds. So I'll tell you that. So it comes tomorrow, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun. So, anyway, aside from that, I've just been, kind of doing a thing, trying to keep up on stuff. Like I say, the news is pretty off the charts. There's a lot of little movements being made, and I'm not saying that in particular about military. Just in general, there's a lot of moves being made across the board, across the world, and it really does seem like the different nations are trying to jockey themselves into a position. I really do think that this is all going to get pushed to conflict, and it almost seems, and again, I shouldn't have to preface this, but I will anyway. With saying, as I always try to remember to say, that, hey, I don't know what's really going on. I don't know if they're working together. I don't know if there's really a rift between these nations, or if it's just a circus sideshow for us. None of us know. And none of us have the absolute 100% for certain answer. And so I think it's important to not close my mind on any one particular scenario, because I think I'm robbing myself, and in effect robbing anyone else that I speak to, if I don't at least consider alternative, options. So I don't know. I do know that they all seem to be working lockstep with one another. They all seem to be implementing certain aspects of different things at the same time, which seems very interesting, to say the least. Hang on, I'm going to pop this open, or up. There we go. A little more, maybe. Okay. Long as I don't max it out, I'm good. What I was doing is turning up my audio, and give me 1 second. Okay, I wanted to make sure to do that on all the screens so that it would be the same volume. I noticed that today. I listened to last night's show for a little bit just to see how the audio was coming out, and I noticed it was just a touch too much on the quiet side for me. I'm pretty particular. But anyway, I think we're going to see a lot unfold over the coming months. I don't think it's something that a bunch of hammers are going to drop overnight. I think it's going to be a series of escalations, but I honestly couldn't tell you. And again, I'm trying to look at this from as many angles as possible. This situation dealing with Taiwan, I can't honestly tell you if that's a powder keg situation, or if that's something that will shake out like the situation with Ukraine. Because like the situation with Ukraine, it's not what I consider a powder keg moment. What do I mean by that? Well, NATO hasn't, officially gotten involved. You know what I mean? NATO is not fighting Russia. So that's not an overnight, going into war. So will Taiwan be any different? than what Ukraine is? My opinion, I think so. I think Taiwan will definitely be much more of a hard, quick strike. And I do believe that, the opposing nations will immediately get involved. I don't think that there will be any delay. I don't think that there'll be any proxy. I think the United States will jump both feet in right away. And I only say this because that's a different situation. Strategically, that's a very, very important peg to have on your map, especially right now. An extremely important peg. Now, I've got my suspicions and my opinions about these diplomatic flights going to Taiwan. And I'll be more than happy to tell you what my suspicion is. I suspect that, of course, deals are being made, papers being signed, stuff like that. That's a given. But I think what they are also doing is I think that they are sneaking back parts of equipment, parts of machines, so that they could reassemble the machines here in the United States and be able to produce or manufacture some of the more complex chips that previously could have only been produced there. So that's honestly what I think they're doing. I think every diplomatic flight over there, while they've got that aircraft, I'm sure they probably put it in a hangar. While they've got that aircraft in a hangar, I think they're loading equipment up on it. And I think they're flying equipment back. And whatever that company is, TMSC or TNS, TMN, I don't remember the letters of the company, but the major chip manufacturer over there, I'd be almost willing to bet that they're the ones that's getting equipment here in the United States, because, see, that's a win-win for them. Not only do they get the United States to help defend them, or at least they think they do, but they also are able to keep their company going and a product being produced and an income coming in from that product being produced, even if they have to shut down operations there in Taiwan. So I think Taiwan is an incredibly important chess piece. I think the United States is trying to sneak some of the pieces off the table for later use. Whether they are or not successful, or whether or not that is truly going on, remains to be seen. But I think that Taiwan is much more of a powder keg. I think that when things go down, boom, it'll go down. Let's see. Yeah, I've heard, Darlene, I've heard that about this September 24th thing. I kind of joked about that yesterday on yesterday's show. I don't put any weight into it, and the reason being is because this is just another one of the goodness how many instances to where people make a mistake, a Freudian slip, if you will, and it really gets thrown out and spun up out of control. And we did okay for a little while there. We had about, I don't know, maybe a week or two without a boogeyman of the week. And then all of a sudden, bam, we got slammed with two boogeymans this week. And one of them, well, not necessarily both this week, but one of them is the 24th. That's really being talked about this week. And then the other thing is the railroad strike, which I think is not something to be real super concerned with either. These are boogeymen of the week, folks. And how many weeks now have the prepper channels been coming out and saying, this is it, this is it, this is it, this is it? Well, guess what? It hadn't been it. And I have a sneaky suspicion tomorrow's not going to be it either. Probably not the next day, probably not the day after that. We got a while. Let's not be in too much of a hurry. And I say that, no, I can't tell you how much time we have. I can't tell you that we've got a while. But I think sitting here trying to beat a dead horse isn't going to help matters any. A lot of people are starting to see past this pattern, if you will, of these boogeymen of the week. And you got to buy this, you got to have this, you got to do this, the top 10 this, the whatever. People are starting to catch on to it. And the reason I know that is you can tell. You can tell that these content creators, if you will, are starting to have to deal with a lot more unsavory comments because it's becoming more and more obvious. Again, it's Boogeyman of the Week, and don't let them run you ragged over it whatsoever. We've got a lot on our plate. We've got a whole lot on our plate. And I don't think things are going to get any better. I don't. But sitting here every single day trying to emotionally manipulate you through fear, for whatever reason that may be, whether it be a financial gain, whether it be an ego gain, whether it be just a number on a YouTube channel, I don't think it's right to do that. I think it's important to give you the information, but I think it's important to give it to you in a manner in which it's not animated, for one, because you don't need emotion, you need information. You don't need emotion. The emotion is for you if you so choose, not for me. For me, it's to give you the facts, and if you want to deal with that in an emotional manner, that's on you. I don't recommend you do so, but I'm going to try to bring it to you in a non-emotional, hopefully at least the best I can, a neutral way. Because I think that's what my job is. Plain and simple. My job is not to propagandize you, to sway you, not to do any of that. To bring you information. So yeah, I do think that Taiwan is much more of a powder keg type of situation than what, Ukraine has been. But I think Ukraine is about to light up pretty quick. And I think there's a good chance that there will be NATO involvement soon enough. Now, whether that be due to an attack on the power plant, the nuclear power plant, whether that be, I don't know, let's say Russia decides to use a tactical nuke, what have you. I don't know. I do think that Russia's about to do something, and I think Russia's about to do something big. But not necessarily nuclear or anything like that. I'm not saying it's not going to be, but I think they're just gonna. I think they're gonna just display one hell of a show of force. Zelensky was actually in a car accident. His motorcade was in an accident today, so he's okay. But I'm actually kind of surprised, to be honest, that Putin hasn't gone after him. And I get it. I mean, I know that the guy's not like just walking around down the middle of the street half naked. I get that. He's going to be a highly protected asset. But you're talking about Russia and Putin, and there's these things called drones. All he has to do is hit that motorcade. That's all you got to do. So, I kind of do suspect that happening at some point. I'm kind of actually surprised it hadn't already happened, to be real honest. I do expect that. I do expect at least an attempt to take out Zelensky relatively soon. Just a suspicion. Now, would that launch NATO and the United States in war against them? Against Russia? That's a good question. If Russia took out Zelensky, would NATO choose that to use to get involved? Well, officially, I'm going to say no on an official level, but in reality, I think it's highly possible. The only reason I say no on an official level is because that's still kind of, for the most part, not our business, I guess would be the best way to put it. I don't know. Anyway, I got a bunch of tabs open. I'm going to bring those tabs up because a lot of this is covering some of the stuff I'm talking about. That's why I'm talking about it. Let me have a sip of coffee. Fun times. My app updated. Dang it. And now all my buttons are in different places. You know, after I got used to where they were. I know. Awesomeness. I'll have to see if I can switch stuff around. Let's see. Alright. U.S. mulls China sanctions to deter Taiwan invasion, says Reuters. Now, haven't we been down this sanction road before? And I'm pretty sure that it just made things harder for the American people. And in fact, I think Russia is not only doing fine, but I think Russia is doing better as a result of what's going on with the sanctions than what they would be if there were no sanctions. And that's just being real honest. Who do you think's going to pay for it if the United States sanctions China? And that's given if we're not in a conflict at that point, or at least, you know, some type of situation where we're not getting anything from them anymore. Who do you think's going to pay for it? The American people. The American people. They're going to pay every cent of those sanctions. Why? Because that's where we get most of our crap from. Believe me, we'll be the ones to pay it. A lot of this that's going on, even the stuff that's happening in Europe and the UK, the United States will pay a price for. In fact, they have been paying a price for it. Part of the increase in gasoline is for you to help pay them to ship LNG and crude to places like China and the EU. Fun times, huh? That says U.S. government is considering whether to impose additional sanctions on China to prevent an invasion of Taiwan, Reuters has reported. The news agency noted that Taipei is lobbying in both the United States and Europe amid rising tensions between Beijing and the island. The White House is considering options for a sanctions package on China due to fears among both Taiwanese and Western officials that Beijing is preparing to launch an invasion to reunify with the island by force, according to unnamed sources cited by Reuters. Though the sources provided few details on the measures under consideration, they said Taiwan is pressing American and European officials to impose penalties, though both lobbying efforts are reportedly at an early stage. Tensions between Washington and Beijing have spiked in recent months, largely triggered by a visit to Taiwan by U.S. House... I'm not going to go into all the backstory. I hate when they do that. But anyway, you get the gist, and like I said, we're the ones that's going to be paying for it. In reality, we're the ones that's going to be paying for the sanctions. It's ridiculous. And that's what, just one of the many things that makes me question whether what we're seeing is what's truly going on. because there's just some aspects to it that just doesn't make any sense. And you would think that if you realized that you were doing something to hurt your own citizens, to hurt your own economy, that you would stop doing it. But they're not. They're doubling and tripling down on every single thing that's hurting this nation. Washington raises Taiwan stakes. A bill that would commit $4.5 billion in U.S. weapons for defense of Taiwan and promote Taipei's membership in international organizations, among other things, cleared the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on Wednesday in a 17-5 vote. Now, do you think anybody, well, obviously some people will vote against it, but I mean overall, do you really think they're going to have a hard problem getting this $4.5 billion to give to Taiwan? No, they're not. And this is ridiculous. And again, we're suffering. We're in a situation, I don't necessarily mean Jen and I right this moment, but the United States is in a situation that things are going to be very, very, very dire, I think, in the coming months for a lot of people. Not only do you have a massive housing crisis that's happening right now, whether that be evictions coming due and people being on the streets, whether that be people being underwater with the homes they just bought, whether that be the housing bubble in itself, anything related in that direction. I'll tell you what, I know a couple people that deal with real estate, and I've noticed here lately they're not real happy campers. One of them seems to be, I don't know, maybe not doing so well. I'll put it this way, a family member showed concern to them. I'll leave it at that. But apparently, this is really starting to hit home to folks, the situation that's sitting in front of us. And again, our government's just sending money overseas. The Taiwan Policy Act comes after weeks of escalating tensions between Washington and Beijing that started with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit, blah, blah, blah. The bill aims to reinforce U.S. policy towards Taiwan in order to maintain stable cross-strait deterrence, said Senator Bob Menendez, the New Jersey Democrat who chairs the committee, accusing China of a campaign to undermine the status quo. Do you at all remember when the Republicans were the war hawks and the Democrats were the ones that said no war? I mean, it seems like I can recall this whole 60s, 70s thing, the whole peace, love, freaky, hippie stuff, right? That was the left, right? No more war? What happened to that? It seems like they're bigger war hawks now than Red Team. Kind of insane. The most comprehensive revamp of U.S. Taiwan policy is more than 4 decades old. As Politico described it, would authorize $4.5 billion in direct military assistance to Taipei and bolster Taiwan's sovereignty by encouraging its membership in an international organization. Yeah, okay. It said that up there as well. Menendez and its co-sponsor, South Carolina's Lindsey Graham, are you surprised, insisted this does not go against U.S. official policy of one China. Now, explain to me how in the hell it wouldn't go against the one China policy if you're giving them $4.5 billion in direct military assistance. How is that not working against the one China policy? That makes no sense. Who are you giving them arms to defend themselves against? The Philippines? I don't think so. Anyway. Oh, really? Is that, are you sure? I mean, is that true, Hexafoos? That just, That's awesome if that's true. That is so awesome if that's true. Oh, man. So, anyway, switching areas a little bit, Russia reacts to U.S. boasting about Ukraine involvement. So, remember when the United States was like, we have to be very careful about how we engage this, or else we could be considered directly involved? Remember that? And I mean, I made example, I think yesterday, about the planes, how they first we're going to send parts for planes in another country. I don't remember if it was Greece or somebody gave them the planes. Might have been, I don't remember who. Somebody gave them the planes, and we gave them parts for the planes. And now we said then, well, we can't give them aircraft, because then that's, we said the same thing about the longer range missiles too, for for their quote unquote missile defense systems, right? Russia already has all of the footing they need to rightfully declare war on NATO. And NATO is continuing to turn up the heat, and I think it's just a matter of time. I actually think that time's coming up. Anyway, this here says, it is cause for deep concern that the U.S. government is openly boasting that Ukraine's battlefield successes were achieved with the Pentagon's direct involvement. The Russian ambassador to Washington, Anatoly Antonov, said in an interview on Wednesday. Against this background, Washington's statements that the U.S. is not a party to the conflict sound absolutely ridiculous and unfounded, Antonov told RIA Novosti. Facts and interviews of former and current politicians and generals say otherwise. Videos currently shown on Western channels clearly demonstrate that soldiers and officers who speak fluent English, many with pronounced British and American accents, are fighting against us, the ambassador added. The U.S. has done everything to turn Ukraine into a dumping ground for its obsolete weapons, but also a testing range for new NATO equipment, Antonov said, pointing out that the insatiable appetite of the U.S. military-industrial complex for profits. Sounds accurate. By the Pentagon's own admission, the U.S. has sent Ukraine more than $17.2 billion in security assistance since 2014, and another $14.5 billion since February. Kiev's patrons are hungry for power and money and not interested in peaceful solutions, said Antonov. There is little to no talk with the West about negotiations, only about sending more weapons to Ukraine, he added. Their main goal is to defeat Russia by any means and subsequently prevent it from playing a key role in the international arena and, if possible, break it into pieces, the ambassador said. They will not stop pushing Ukraine into further suicidal adventures, such as the offensives that were doomed from the start. Ukraine has claimed in its recent advances in the Kharkov region are a turning point in the conflict. On Monday, the New York Times reported that the U.S. and UK had been involved in planning the operation, including the admission by the Pentagon's policy chief, Colin Powell, that the U.S. military did do some modeling and some tabletop exercises, which it shared with Kiev. The current situation of Washington inciting Kiev against us is an indisputable, obvious fact, said Antonov. If the Americans go along with Ukraine's insane demands for long-range rockets, he added, such a scenario would mean direct involvement of the U.S. in a military confrontation with Russia. Even so, this will not lead to real change on the front line, Antonov said. Only naive, short-sighted politicians who know history poorly can talk about victory over Russia on the battlefield. Russia's mission is to lay down the foundations of a multipolar world order and send the American rules-based world order into the dustbin of history, and Moscow's diplomats have no doubt that we will achieve victory, he concluded. Now I know that for longer than I've been alive, there's been banter that goes back and forth. Hey, I'm a product of the Cold War. But this isn't the same banter. And honestly, Russia has actually backed up quite a bit on what they said that they would accept. Now, do I think they did that because they're weak and they don't want to go to war? Well, I don't think that because they're weak. I don't think Putin really wants to go to war with NATO. But I don't think he's afraid to go to war with NATO. Not whatsoever. In fact, I don't think he's at all afraid of going to war with NATO. I just don't think he wants to. I don't think he wants that type of conflict. I don't think he wants those types of casualties and all of that over what his mission is in Ukraine. And in fact, my opinion, and no good than anybody else's, but I honestly think that if NATO would have left the situation alone, I have a feeling that this would have been over with. I have a feeling that it would have just been that, Donetsk, Lugansk region or whatever, and of course they've already had Crimea, but I think they would pretty much add that Lugansk, Donetsk region or whatnot, and that would have been it. That would have been it. It would have been over. Nope. NATO had to get involved, keep the fires burning, and I think before it's said and done, I think Russia's going to have all of Ukraine before it's all said and done. If there's anything left of it. So anywho, shift gears a little bit here. Global stocks tumble on U.S. inflation fears. Major stock markets across Europe and Asia nosedived on Wednesday, a day after a report showing stubbornly high price growth in the U.S. prompted a sell-off on Wall Street. The Pan-European Stock 600 was down 0.5% by 10:50 GMT, extending losses from the previous day. Food and beverage stocks were the hardest hit, shedding 1.3%. Germany's DAX dropped 0.47%, while France's CAC 40 was down by 0.33%. The FTSE 100 index in London was trading 0.85% lower. U.S. stocks tanked on Tuesday, logging their worst day since June 2020 after a key August inflation report came in hotter than expected, hurting investor optimism for cooling prices and a less aggressive Federal Reserve. The U.S. Consumer Price Index, which covers key goods and services, jumped 0.1% from July versus economist projections of a 0.1% drop. Annual inflation eased for the second straight month but also remained stubbornly high, with prices up 8.3% year on year. The lackluster U.S. inflation data caught markets in Asia completely off guard as well, according to the regional head of Asia Pacific Research at ING, Robert Carnell, as quoted by CNBC. Japan's Nikkei sank 2.78% on Wednesday, while South Korea's Kospi lost 1.56%. Chinese markets were also down, with the benchmark Shanghai Composite Index sliding 0.8% and Hong Kong's Hang Seng losing 2.5%. So, not good either. Not good either. Oh, man. I gotta have a couple of vapes. Man, oh, man. All right. U.S. rail strike plans threaten further business disruptions. Sorry, I read that wrong. Nearly 115,000 U.S. rail workers are poised to go on strike on Thursday at midnight, shutting down 40% of long-distance trade after negotiations between rail unions and carriers failed to bear fruit. While the end of the cooling-off period does not guarantee a strike, 2 of the 12 rail workers' unions have yet to reach a deal with the industry's bargaining committee, and the other 10 have vowed to walk off the job even if one union is left without a contract. A strike would cost the U.S. economy as much as $2 billion per day, according to the Association of American Railroads. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce is warning of a national economic disaster, while industry figures warn the impact of a strike would double each day if continued. The U.S. economy is already strained by supply chain disruptions stemming from the COVID-19 shutdowns, record-high inflation, and sky-high energy costs. President Joe Biden is reportedly working with other modes of transportation to try to pick up the slack, but the trucking industry was already short 80,000 drivers before the strike, and the AAR's analysis found an additional 467,000 long-haul trucks would be required to move the stalled freight. A presidential emergency board appointed in July has recommended a 14% wage increase for workers and stronger benefits, but the unions say they won't accept any proposal that doesn't change the brutal attendance policies that currently force them to be on call 90% of the time. If this contract is presented to our members in its current form, it will not pass, a union spokesperson told CNBC on Monday. Railroads insist the system is necessary to ensure sufficient manpower to operate and claim to have been hiring aggressively to ease the strain, but the U.S. Surface Transportation Board reported major carriers have cut their ranks by 29% over the past 6 years. Carriers are already preparing for the strike, securing hazardous materials and other sensitive cargo. Passenger operator Amtrak has canceled all long-distance routes starting Thursday in preparation for the strike. While its own employees are not part of the unions involved, 97% of its service operates on freight lines serviced by the striking unions. Passenger service in the Northeast Corridor from Washington, D.C. to Boston via New York City will not be affected, however. Rail workers last went on strike in 1992. The walkout lasted 2 days before Congress intervened, a possibility the Biden administration is likely hoping to avoid in a midterm election year in which his party needs union support. So, do I think this is going to cause the apocalypse? No. Do I think that this might cause some inconveniences and some issues? Not a lot, because it'll get dealt with. I really do think that this will get dealt with. Now, whether or not it'll be done in 2 days, like the last one, I don't know about that. They do have a complaint. Like the article said, they're on call like 90% of the time. It's a train, so it's not like you get weekends off or whatever. You're gone as long as you're gone. It's like going on a ship. Now, here's the thing. Part of that was why you got paid such good wages. And, I know a guy, that his job is he replaces the batteries that are in the towers, the cell phone towers. They've got that little building next to the tower. Well, those buildings have backup batteries in them. And that's what he does for a living. He replaces those batteries. And he's gone all the time. He's going all over the country. All over. It's hard to say where he's going to be one day from the next. And, but, you know, he makes damn good money. And, you know, he's a single guy. And, you know, he's crazy. I don't know how the hell he's got the energy. He's older than what I am. I don't know how he's got the energy. And I don't know how he can deal with pain, to be honest, because the dude is like one of the craziest people I've ever met. And he has a lot of fun, and in the process does a lot of damage to his body. I just can't see how he's doing as good as he does. Well, I don't know what Dale's drinking, but I need some of it. Anyway, he, you know, but he makes the money for that, to be, you know, to be gone all the time. I don't honestly think that these individuals working for the railways, if you were to, say, compare the wages now, 30 years ago, in an actual fair comparison, I would almost be willing to bet that the railroad employees are getting screwed hardcore compared to how much they made before. And I'm not, again, talking about an actual dollar amount. I'm talking about an actual value amount. Because that used to be a job that if you could get on with the railroad, you would make a fortune. A fortune. It was hard work, and you were gone a lot. That was part of the job, and it was just accepted. So part of this I kind of take a little bit of an issue with, because that's why they're supposed to get paid so much. But they're not getting paid what they should be getting paid. You know, it's that's the way it is, you know. You want to talk about, there's jobs that have super low life expectancies, like an underwater welder. You know, they've got super, super low life expectancies. They make a paycheck for that. They literally, the amount of money that they make is massive. And the reason for that is because they are literally trading their life. So, you know, it's whatever somebody's willing to trade and how much they're willing to trade it for. So, they set up in here something, they had mentioned something about vehicles. Thought they did. Yeah. Yeah, so it would take, I guess altogether, it would take 467,000 long-haul trucks to move this, I guess, the same amount of freight. So, crazy. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much of an impact it's going to have. I don't suspect it's going to be super bad, though. So, I think that's a boogeyman of the week. Wouldn't sweat it yet. And none of us should be sweating it anyway. I mean, if supplies were delayed or slowed or even stopped for even a month, we should be able to bat an eye at that, should we not? I mean, majority of voters say Biden dividing the U.S., says a survey. And I find that rather interesting. Some 58.7% of American voters believe that U.S. President Joe Biden has divided rather than unified the country during his time in office, a new poll has found. The results come as Biden battles low approval ratings and after he accused his political opponents of threatening democracy itself. Well, I'm sure that the Nazi Hitler's speech the other night didn't really help him out any. Commissioned by the Convention of States and released on Wednesday, the poll found that 58.7% of Americans believe that Biden has divided the U.S., while 20.6% think he's unified it, and another 20.7% aren't sure. They probably need to put down the crack pipe. While 43.6% of Democrats believe that Biden has made good on his campaign promises, they're the ones that really need to put down the pipe, to be a president for all Americans. 92.8% of Republicans think he has divided the country, as do 64.1% of independents, according to Breitbart, which first obtained the results of the poll. A separate Trafalgar poll released on Monday put Biden's approval at 39.3%, with 54.8% disapproving. Although the U.S. president's ratings vary from poll to poll, they have consistently fallen over the last year. A Yahoo News and YouGov survey taken earlier this month found more than 60% of Americans, including nearly half of Democrats, feel that the U.S. is on the wrong track. When asked about Biden's performance, the majority of respondents stated they disapproved of how he's handling the key issues such as the economy, race relations, guns, crimes, climate change, abortion, and health care-related matters. Against this background, Biden delivered a highly controversial speech in Philadelphia at the beginning of the month, in which he declared that former President Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans, do you mean ultra-MAGA, represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. You know what threatens the foundations of our republic? Your entire crew. You, the Clintons, the Cheneys, the Gateses, all of y'all. Should probably go visit the Queen. I didn't say it. There's a copy speaking. A suspicious package explodes on university campus. A suspicious package found at Northeastern University in Boston exploded on campus, injuring a school employee. The FBI is taking a role in an investigation as officers determine how the parcel wound up on the school grounds and the exact cause of the explosion. A package delivered to the university's Holmes Hall went off as a 45-year-old staffer attempted to open it on Tuesday evening, Boston Police Superintendent Felipe Colon told reporters during a press conference. According to a school spokesperson, the employee suffered minor injuries and is being treated. Law enforcement noted that the blast took place around 7:15 p.m. local time and urged members of the community to be cautious and to report any suspicious packages they might see in the area. The apparent bomb scare triggered an evacuation of the building while the Boston Police Bomb Squad was called in to clear the hall. The motives of the individual who placed the package at Holmes Hall is still unknown to authorities, who are continuing to investigate. The FBI's Boston division is assisting the probe, a bureau spokesperson told CNN. No suspects have been identified publicly and no arrests have been made. University's own police department said the area in question is currently contained in a tweet around 10 p.m., several hours after the explosion was first reported, while the department's chief, Michael Davis, later stressed that the campus is secure. According to the Boston Herald, a second suspicious package was discovered but later rendered safe by the police bomb squad, while a separate suspicious device was also found near the city's Museum of Fine Arts, located close to the university, a Boston NBC affiliate reported. So what's going on? I have no clue. I just, some of this stuff just doesn't make sense. When there's no motive, when there's no clear, then why? I mean, are we trying to come up with some common sense box control or something? I don't know. There has to be a motive. And you would think that if somebody was going to be so, make such a strong statement, if you will, that they would at least make sure to know, to be able to relay what their grievance is. I mean, it's not just some serial box killer. I mean, there's got to be a motive, and they can't be hiding the motive that much. And maybe their motive is terror. That could be it, just terror. But believe it or not, I think that's a little more rare than people think. There's usually something more definitive to the reason why they're carrying out their activities. End of COVID pandemic in sight, says WHO. Really? So, really? I am so glad and I feel relieved now. That's why I wanted to bring you this article, because I know you've all been waiting. You've been at the edge of your seats, and you just didn't want to feel safe until the WHO told you that you could. Not yet, mind you. Not yet. Don't feel safe yet. It's in sight. It's not here. So, keep your masks handy. Make sure to go get your shot. And, but it's near. It's in sight now. We can see it. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, who the hell, and pun intended, who the hell do they think they're even talking to? I mean, the majority of the planet has said, double middle fingers, we're going to do what we want. And they're still like, well, you're still in a pandemic. We are? Insanity. Anyway, I'm not even going to do the article justice and read it because it's stupid. Huh. Fun times. Gotta get up tomorrow and get my coffee in me, then I can start preparations. Gonna, like I'd said before, I'm gonna shoot like a behind the scenes of a beta tester video, and I don't know if I'll ever be allowed to release it, but I'm gonna shoot the video for it anyway. And if it looks like it's something that, like, after the product releases or something that I could release, then yeah, I'll make a little video and, figured it might be cool. So, but I just can't release anything or anything whatsoever. Can't talk about it as far as let anybody know what it is, who it's from, anything. Like I said, I gave you that it weighs 62 pounds. That's it. That's all you get. I'm pretty sure you can't figure it out from that, so figure I'm okay to say that. Anyway, let's do some headlines and run out the back door and flail our arms in the air and scream. Because, hey, somebody's got to be that neighbor. We just got to step up, Let's see. Kazakhstan to rename its capital again. Oh, well then. Isn't that, you know what it is, right? It's a conspiracy. Right? The government of Kazakhstan, they're in cahoots with the map makers. That's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah. Let's see. Russia-India trade more than doubles, says Kremlin. Berlin prepares massive energy bailout, says the media. Pardon me. EU about to face reality on Russia sanctions, says Hungary. Pentagon's future inflation losses revealed. Moscow outlines diabolical plan by Washington. Gunfight breaks out between two former Soviet republics. Dozens of King Charles III's staff face redundancy, says The Guardian. EU chiefs suggest way to avoid future gas troubles. Burrell compares anti-Russia sanctions to diet. By the way, the whole King thing. Anybody think that he's done? What was the name of that? Now see, I'm going to screw up the whole thing because I can't even remember the name of the movie. Oh yeah, I can. Do you think that Charles is going to do the whole risky business slide through the living room of the castle? I think that was the movie, right? Where he did the slide. Let's see. Russian corporates fleeing the dollar. I know I don't want to visualize him doing that, and I hope nobody went there, but I'm sorry if he did. EU will prevail over Russia, says von der Leyen. Poor European nation fears economic crash, says Bloomberg. EU may punish Hungary, says media. Let's see. Ukraine's security proposal makes Russian op more urgent, says the Kremlin. Global stocks. Oh, I covered that one. Russian gas in demand outside EU, says Kremlin. Queen's funeral compared to the Olympics. Sure they're pleased by that. Moscow rejects claim about NATO deal with Kiev. Russian chief spy says he won't congratulate the CIA. Well, why would you? A Zelensky guard appears to wear Nazi insignia. I keep saying Ukraine, well, their government is a Nazi government. Plain and simple. That's why I don't understand how they've got the support that they've gotten. U.S. to disperse $3.5 billion of frozen Afghan funds. Majority of voters say... Oh, I read that one. Armenia asks Russian-led alliance for military assistance. Another arrest in Tokyo Olympics bribery case. Hackers target Russian-led military bloc, says a statement. Nordic nation offers energy crisis solution. Putin and Xi meeting agenda is revealed. Let's see. UK house prices soar, says a report. Woman with toy gun gets thousands from bank. Lukashenko, wow, butchered that. Lukashenko trolls the EU. Nearly half of San Franciscans, did I even say that right? Personally affected by crime, says a poll. Well, they're all personally affected by a dumb government as well. Only thing missing is a zombie invasion, says the Spanish PM. So, I guess he's hoping for the zombie apocalypse. India concerned about U.S. military aid for Pakistan. Biden suggests new Russia envoy, says media. U.S. Jewish organizations clash over teaching white privilege. Now that ought to be an interesting battle now. We're gonna see the BLM go against I guess Israel, essentially, right? That's crazy. I forget. I was trying to think of the name of the organization that they mentioned. I didn't mean to do that. Back it up. Hang on. I can't remember. Oh, yeah. That's right. I should have been able to remember, by the way. Zionist Organization of America. So, like right there out of the gate, the very first word in the name of the organization, and I'm over it. I'm done. I want nothing to do with them. Take that however you want. But, yeah. Okay. Had another article come out, so made sure I got it out. Kosovo says it will seek EU membership. Azerbaijan proposes humanitarian truce to Armenia. Poland passes reparations bill. Putin and UN chief discuss Ukraine. EU's country's government defeated in election. Read that and that. Ukraine president involved in Kiev car crash. I mentioned that earlier. Turkey demands explanation from Kiev over sanctions hit list. Read that one. And this was just came out. China's Xi makes sovereignty pledge on first trip since pandemic. So, that is what's going on. Anyway, I think I pretty much got everything covered. Don't know of anything else to add. I'm gonna, like I say, I'm gonna be that neighbor. I'm gonna go out and run around the house, and I'm gonna throw my arms in the air and scream, "The end is nigh! The end is nigh!" Because hey, somebody's got to be that neighbor. And if you don't have anybody in your neighborhood that does that, then I urge you, right? Take the bull by the horns. Be a leader. And go out and run around. Just scream, "The end is nigh, the end is nigh," and throw your arms up in the air. It's amazing, not only the feeling you'll personally get, but the laugh that your neighbors will get is priceless. So make sure you YouTube it, though, and upload it. So anyway, I'm going to get out of here. God willing, we'll be back tomorrow for some more nonsense and hopefully some good news. And I hope to see you then. So as always, we love you. God bless you. Be one with your spirit. And shalom.